The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is sponsored by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
We welcome to this week's show York County District Attorney Dave Sunday, who is currently the Republican nominee for Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Dave is a first-time guest, and we will delve into his background for your consideration as voters. Dave was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and raised in nearby Cumberland County. Right out of high school, Dave enlisted in the United States Navy. After basic, he was deployed to the Persian Gulf, where he participated in Operation Desert Strike, which was initiated in response to the Iraqi offensive in the Kurdish Civil War. After that mission was completed, Dave was deployed to South America and performed counter-narcotics operations in the Caribbean. Upon his completion of military service, Dave took a job at UPS, while at the same time pursuing his college education. While holding down his UPS job, which helped pay for his tuition, Dave completed his bachelor's degree in finance from the Pennsylvania State University. After Penn State, he went on to the Widener School of Law, receiving his Juris Doctorate in 2007, all the time still working for UPS to pay for his law school tuition. While still in law school, Dave also served as a legal intern at the United Nations Office of the Secretariat. He was assigned to the Department of Peacekeeping Operations. Dave, after a stint as a law clerk to the Chief President Judge of York County, he then went on to serve, having passed the bar exam and as a lawyer, as the Chief Deputy Prosecutor of Litigation for the York County District Attorney's Office, supervising major crime cases in the Felony Narcotics Unit, as well as being an advisor to the county SWAT team. Dave then ran for and won the office of District Attorney of York County in his own right in 2017, and he has served in that capacity for the past 7 years. Dave has also had the honor of being appointed by the United States Department of Justice as a special prosecutor, being appointed Special Assistant United States Attorney for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, where he assisted in prosecuting gang, illegal gun, and drug cases in federal court. We look forward to talking today to Dave about his qualifications and his agenda items and what areas he believes he needs to focus on, with crime being an issue all over Pennsylvania, especially in Philadelphia. Gang violence and other drug-related issues that gangs are involved in have proliferated to northeast and central Pennsylvania. I've done shows on that topic, and Dave will address the fentanyl deaths as well as gang activity beside the other issues that he will place at the top of his agenda. We look forward to having that discussion on today's show.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial, the area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Dave, welcome to the Volpe Report.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the issues of your campaign and why you're running for Attorney General, tell the folks stuff they're not going to know about, like your upbringing, your value system, what you learned from your parents,
Sure.
What you did as a boy to mold you into becoming a prosecutor. And by the way, as they heard in your open, you're a hell of a prosecutor. You're a district attorney, a very accomplished one. But between then, that line between then is adolescence and there, kind of fill in the blanks.
No, I appreciate that. And so by way of background, I'm 49. I grew up in central Pennsylvania. My mom's family actually is from Shamokin, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with. And
Yes.
so we have many, many generations of coal miners and a Shamokin family. And so my father is a retired public school teacher. And so, I grew up in really your typical, I'll say, lower middle class home. I was a bit of a knucklehead when I was a kid. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
Me too.
And so, so when I turned 18, I decided I wanted to join the military. And so I went to the recruiter and I joined the Navy right out of high school. So I was a young man. I was enlisted. I joined the Navy. I was an E1. So for your viewers that know about the military, that's the lowest rank humanly possible. And so I was on a ship. We were a guided missile frigate. We were deployed all throughout the world. And as a young man, I mean, that really changed my life. I'm going to tell you, it was one of the best decisions, other than marrying my wife, that I've ever made. And when I was in the Navy, I learned a lot of things that were really important. I mean, so I was deployed to the Persian Gulf during Operation Desert Strike. I was deployed to Central and South America. We did counter drug operations. And when you're on a ship with 240 other sailors from all walks of life, from every demographic you could possibly imagine, we had a common mission. And that common mission was something we achieved regardless of anything else because we worked as a team. And Chuck, that's under some of the most stressful, difficult circumstances that you could possibly think of.
Agreed.
And that experience for me changed my life. It instilled in me a sense of purpose. It instilled in me honor, commitment, and courage, which are the Navy's core values. It taught me how critical it is to work as a team. And it also taught me that when you have a joint mission with other people, you can achieve anything. It also, to be honest, one of the lessons from the military, and anyone that served knows this, is regardless of what's going on around you, you have to get the job done, whether it's rain or snow or, whatever the circumstances might be in society, you have to get the job done every day. So this is interesting. So I came home from the Navy and I hadn't gone to college at that point. And so, like a lot of returning veterans, I opened up the back of the phone book looking for jobs, and I found one at UPS. And so I worked at UPS on 19th and Paxton Street in Harrisburg at the hub all day, or I worked there all night while I went to college during the day. So for all 4 years, I went to college, and then I went to worked at UPS at night. And then I worked at UPS during the day while I went to law school at night. And so those first 12 years of my life, or of my professional life, 4 years enlisted in the military all over the world, followed by 8 years working at UPS through college and law school, laid the foundation for values that I have in leadership. Working in the private sector really has instilled upon me certain lessons that one learns when you have to be very, very fiscally responsible. Those years were just amazing. A lot of my criminal justice initiatives that are some of our most successful ones actually grew from some of the lessons I learned working at UPS. My wife, my beautiful wife, I met her at the end of law school. She was born in a country called Sri Lanka, and she moved here when she was very, very young. She's a naturalized citizen.
Wow.
And so we have a wonderful son who's in 4th grade, and that's an important part of who I am in my life.
You are almost singularly unique in that not very many can talk about having that kind of experience, whether it's in the Navy serving your country, which I'm sure will matter to veterans who are going to be voting in November, going to UPS and working at UPS, then deciding to work and pay for your college education and your law school education. You can talk about middle class values because you came from the middle class. You can talk about working hard to achieve goals. We have this sense in America, I feel, Dave, and this is, again, the progressive left Democrats, that there's this sense of entitlement that government come in and should do all this stuff for you, which is a short, slippery slope to communism, by the way. So it's refreshing to hear that from a candidate for Attorney General.
Chuck, I mean, I worked unbelievably hard, and those first, 14, those first 12 years of my professional career it was outside of your local or state government. And, when you serve in the military, I'm going to tell you, man, like I've worked with people that have worked unbelievably hard to achieve what they had in life. At UPS, I worked with people, who did backbreaking work every day to put food on their table, to take care of their families. And, there's magic that happens, and I've seen it, when people recognize that they have the power within themselves to change their lives, and they don't need government to do it. I've seen that firsthand, and I never forgot it. When people recognize that they have it within themselves, not only will they just get by, but oftentimes they'll thrive. And so, for example, as an elected DA, we do a tremendous amount of work with what's called reentry. 95% of everyone that goes to prison is going to come back out, 95%. And so if you want to hold people accountable and you want to lower crime, you want those people to not commit more offenses. And so to that point, we've partnered with our manufacturers association, with employers in our community. Harley Davidson is a second chance hirer for us. And we've set up this whole system where people, if they want to do it, they can work and get into career jobs. And that has lowered our recidivism rate astronomically. And so that's a lesson, believe it or not, that I learned at UPS that I carried with me throughout my life now, going in 16 years as a prosecutor.
Well, that's perfect from after what I said, and then you actually give us a specific example. Well done. So now let's talk about, now that your qualifications and who you are clearly established, you woke up one day, and I had that same experience myself, so I can, understand, to decide to take on the onerous task of running for a statewide major powerful office, Attorney General. How did that happen? That's a pretty big, that's like deciding, you're going to take up golf. That's something that's about a 2.5 or 3 year commitment. It's a big state, and it's a very, very difficult task. Now, obviously, your background has prepared you for difficult tasks, but how did that all come about?
Right. So to begin with, my son's in 4th grade, like I said earlier, and the way I explained it to him, and this is important because, I'm a father and a husband first. My number one job is being a dad. And what I explained to him was that sometimes in life, you have to do things that are unbelievably difficult, even if you're not sure of what the outcome will be, because there are certain battles in life that have to be fought. And for a guy who has spent my career as an attorney in a courtroom, in a courthouse in York County, directly north of Baltimore, which we used to have one of the highest criminal dockets in Pennsylvania. I have spent now 16 years seeing behind the curtain on some of the challenges we face criminally with society. And what I have seen are things that worry me as a prosecutor and as a parent. I mean, when we were kids, if you made a mistake, you might not feel well for a day. In today's world, the reality is, and this isn't political hyperbole, a mistake for a child could equal death. We have 15 people dying a day in Pennsylvania from fentanyl. And so we're at a place where this is very, very serious. And I've been in a courtroom. I mean, I have prosecuted murder cases in front of juries. I mean, to the point, victims that were, a young child, less than 1, who was murdered, all the way up to a senior citizen that was murdered, a wife that was murdered, gang members that were murdered, and everything in between. And so when you've looked at juries and you've, lived in this for as long as I have, that this is serious. And Chuck, you have to have serious people that are experts in what they do in these jobs that impact so many people. And I watched it around me, and I never anticipated doing this, by the way. And I sat down with my wife, and I just said, honey, like, look at this. This is what's going on out there. We need someone that knows what they're doing, or else we're in deep trouble. And she said, let's go. And I'm very blessed to have that support from my family. But I do think that sometimes you have to take a stand. I'm telling you right now, this campaign is simple. If our community's not safe, nothing else matters. And so what I see a lot of in life, and I played basketball, to the best of my ability when I was younger, and our coach would say, you have to learn how to bounce pass before you can slam dunk. And what we're seeing in government, people are doing all of these things that are outside of the core competency of what their job is. And when that happens, you're not doing the things that actually impact the citizens every day. That's why I'm running. For me, this is mission-based. I'm not running for a title. I'm not running for a different title. I'm literally running just to be the Attorney General. And for me, it's about if our community is not safe, nothing else matters.
In my lifetime, I have never seen a greater negative influence from a far leftist progressive agenda. One of the benefactors of that agenda is George Soros, coming into big cities all over this country, funding with literally hundreds of millions of dollars, because he's obviously a billionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars to elect far left, progressive, radical district attorneys. And it's with sadness I say this, that I look across our great cities, and it's hard to look and not look away. San Francisco, it looks like the post-apocalypse. Los Angeles, encampments, feces on the sidewalk. You look at places like Chicago, a disgrace. Waukesha, Wisconsin, where you had a far-left prosecutor release a miscreant who should have been in jail, had actually tried to run his wife over a week earlier with the car, got right out of jail free, because that's what they do. They don't put people or keep people in jail. And then he's the guy that ran over all those women and children and elderly people in the parade, the Christmas parade or Thanksgiving parade at Waukesha, Wisconsin. He should have been in jail. So, and then I say, not the best, but maybe the worst for last, Philadelphia, right here in Pennsylvania. I've done shows, I've had guests on, leadership in the House and the Senate talking about impeaching Larry Krasner for his decision not to prosecute crime either. So you're getting a firsthand look right in Pennsylvania. All you have to do is look a little further south of York and Philly and see what these progressive, leftist, democratic policies have done to our country. So speak to that a little bit.
So to begin with, so for those that aren't familiar, York County, we go from Harrisburg down to the Maryland border. We're directly north of Baltimore. Baltimore is notorious as the heroin capital of the United States. And so because of that, that's a battle that we have to constantly fight. And so through that, we've really adapted the way that we do business, and we learned how important it is to attack the supply of heroin, but also the demand. So through that, we've been able to decrease, and the work that we do, we've been able to decrease homicides in the city of York by 75% from 2022 to 2023, and gang gun violence by 80% during that same time period. And this is how we did it. We did it by holding people accountable. You have to have accountability in the criminal justice system, and you also have to embrace redemption on the other side. But you don't even get to that if you aren't holding people accountable. And so what we did was, and as an experienced prosecutor, I work with everyone in our community, everybody, because politics have no place with regard to public safety. It has no place in the office of a prosecutor. And so what we did was we focused on finding the most violent criminal, the most violent ones, holding them accountable. So we went after them, we investigated them, we prosecuted them, and we incarcerated them. And Chuck, that's how we did it. And so when you look around the state, you have to understand that there isn't, and I know people know this, but Philadelphia is not its own entity. There's like an ecosystem here in Pennsylvania, and every single one of us are impacted in some ways by each other. We're all in this together. And Philadelphia is one of the places where we see drugs coming from into our communities. It's one of the places where we see that trafficking happens through Philadelphia. And so to that point, the reality is when you look at these far left progressive prosecutors, okay, the critical component that they have removed from the equation is that of accountability. There are children in these cities, such as Philadelphia, who, Chuck, have more trauma than some veterans returning from war because of the amount of shootings and gunshots and violence that takes place around them in their lives every day. And these are little children. They deserve the best of what we have to offer. And the best of what I have to offer as a prosecutor is to hold the bad guys accountable so that they can go to school in safety. What's our world going to look like in the future when we have an entire generation that have to live around this crime, this horrific crime? How do we expect them to learn in schools? And so to that point, this is the motivation for me as a career prosecutor as to why I'm running for Attorney General. We have a SEPTA prosecutor now that has been appointed in Philadelphia. I will work hand in hand with that individual and make sure that he has all of the tools necessary to do the job and collaborate with him I'll work with the Philadelphia police. I will work with the Philadelphia mayor, and I will do everything in my power, to support law enforcement in the Southeast so that we can get around this and do what we can to keep our communities safe.
You know, tied to the drug distribution, though, including fentanyl, along with the violence and the murder, is the proliferation of gang activity in Pennsylvania. It's come to Scranton, Pennsylvania, Dave. I did a show, and I had on that show a roundtable discussion. On that show was the director of the gang task force, state trooper, lieutenant state trooper, who was in charge of Northeast and Central Pennsylvania. So we had the state police represented. I had Democratic Senator Marty Flynn, who's made gang violence a big issue for him. He's brought funding from Harrisburg to help alleviate and support law enforcement in fighting gang violence. I also had the first assistant district attorney on as well, who's in charge of Lackawanna County's drug task force. And in that that 4 people roundtable, one of the things we were letting people know was, despite our mayor's claim in Scranton, oh, we don't have a gang problem, we have a gang problem in Scranton. It has also spread to Lackawanna County and to northeastern Pennsylvania. These are things I found out that are shocking to me. We have in the school system, Scranton school system, which is high school, of course, 120 known gang members that they have a file on at the state police. We have had more gang-related incidents. Check this out, Dave. More gang-related incidents of violence, whether with a teacher or fellow students, in the Scranton School District than Philadelphia or Pittsburgh school districts. How's that for take your breath away? In March of this past year, April, we had a gang member that was 17 or 18-year-old shoot into a police car, seriously and critically wounding a police detective that was investigating gang activity, and he's starting to recover. He somehow survived a bullet in his head. So that's only in 6 or 8 months in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So your take on that?
So a couple points I want to make. The first one is that our group violence initiative in York, which is the one that has really done wonders for us and helped us to lower our gang violence rate by 80%, the gang gun violence rate, and our homicides by 75%. We're actually now working with Lackawanna County to share a lot of the insights that we have from York in dealing with our issue. And I'm going to tell you right now that, you don't have a gang problem until you do. And the reality is you absolutely, and this is from experience, okay? For 4 years, I was a special assistant United States attorney, where I worked as a federal prosecutor looking at York large-scale gangs in the city of York and what can we do about it. And so we had a big Operation Sunrise where we investigated with the Pennsylvania State Police and our federal partners a gang called the Latin Kings that set up shop in York. And we arrested and indicted 100 of them. And this was a long-term investigation. It was very precise. And that's something that I bring to the table as Attorney General, having that experience. Now, what I will say is you cannot mess with these issues, meaning you can't let it take root. You have to identify the individual actors that are committing the violence. You must investigate them, and you have to hold them accountable. Because if they realize or believe that they can behave in this way without any repercussions, they're going to keep doing it. It will continue. They're going to be dealing drugs, and they're going to cause a lot of harm in society. I cannot tell you how strongly I feel about the critical nature of aggressively going after violent crime. Citizens do not deserve to be in situations here in the United States of America where they have to fear gang violence around them with their children and their families. It's absolutely, it's not acceptable. And it's one of the reasons why I'm running for Attorney General.
Talk about, in the last few minutes we have, other agenda items for you that you'd like to tell the people of Pennsylvania,
Sure.
and especially in this media market, Northeast and Central Pennsylvania. So go ahead.
So I want to start with, right off the bat, Pennsylvania's got one of the highest populations of senior citizens in the entire country. And as the district attorney and as a longtime prosecutor, I have worked on those cases not only to prevent them, but also in court where I've tried people in front of juries who have stolen money from seniors. The average amount of money that's stolen from a senior in a theft like that is around $38,000. So I don't know about you, but I know if someone stole $38,000 from me, there'd be trouble in paradise. So I can tell you right now, this is unbelievably critical. And when you add to it the ongoing AI advancements with artificial intelligence, we have a scenario being created where you have an entire black market, okay, of criminals that are predators with our senior citizens every single day. Because I think that the way we treat the most vulnerable amongst us is a direct reflection on who we are as a society. And God willing, every one of us will someday be those seniors that are in those circumstances. And so that's really important to me. When we go back to the internet again and we look at there's a whole division in the Attorney General's office, the Child Predator Unit. And when we look at what's happened with artificial intelligence, with cyber predators that are going after children on social media and the internet, it advances so fast that most parents, like, you're just trying to work and get through your day, let alone keep up with advancements in technology. We have to be aggressive in identifying those perpetrators and also protecting our children. So when we look at cyber criminals and children, that's another absolute priority that I have. In addition to that, we've seen human trafficking all over Pennsylvania. Okay. And we've really gotten to a place where we have to be aggressive with human traffickers. I have worked on that through our human trafficking task force in York County as a DA. I've worked with our federal partners, our state partners. And so these are areas that I'm going to focus on because, again, I think that if our community's not safe, nothing else matters.
Well, that's well stated, Dave. We probably have a minute left, and now we'll turn to purely politics. This will be your chance to look into the camera and talk to Pennsylvanians in this media market why they should vote for you. We have a minute left.
Absolutely. So the Attorney General in Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania's top prosecutor by statute. That is the job. And so when you want someone to be your top prosecutor, do you want someone that has never been in a courtroom, who has never prosecuted a bad guy, who has never even practiced as a lawyer? Or do you want someone who has dedicated their professional life to fighting against the bad guys, fighting to hold criminals accountable, fighting to protect victims, who has put together large-scale, complex criminal investigations, who has lowered their homicide rate by 75% in a city directly north of Baltimore? Overdose death rates are down 26% as well in York. We started a nonprofit where we work with the community to do that. That's who you want in that job. You want someone who's not bouncing from job to job to job. This is not the time for that. It's not the office for that. It's not the place for it. And our children and our families are worth so much more than someone who just wants a title. I'm a prosecutor. I'm running for Attorney General because I want to keep families safe, just like I try to keep my son safe. And so that's why I'd ask Pennsylvanians to vote for me as Attorney General.
I wish you good luck and Godspeed in the rest of your campaign, Dave. And I thought you did a great job. And hopefully we'll have you back on the Volpe Report in the future.
It's great to be here. God bless. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Dave.
Now there's more places you can see the Volpe Report. Watch every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. on Fox 56. Or watch on YouTube at the Volpe Report. More ways to watch. Still the same premier public affairs show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians.